In this video, I'm going to be telling you what a credit score is, why it's so important, and how to get it way up. Hello and welcome to The Adult Life, where we give you the tools to be a happy and healthy adult. My name is Simi and I'm the adult in charge. People are always talking about credit scores. Don't do this, it's bad for your credit score. Do this, it's really good for your credit score. Don't do this or it'll blow up your credit score. But what is a credit score and how exactly does it affect you? So a credit score is an imaginary number used by credit reporting bureaus to let other people know how trustworthy you are with your credit. So contrary to popular belief, there actually is not one credit score in the UK. In America, they use the FICO credit score, which goes from 0 to 999, and that's what they usually use for all of theirs. But over here, we have 3 separate credit reporting bureaus that have 3 separate credit scores. Now, the big dog in the UK is Experian, just because they're the biggest and a lot of people know about them, and they're the ones that people really use. But there's also Equifax and TransUnion, and lenders do actually use those as well, so you might as well get a report from all 3. So now we're thinking, where do we get this credit report from? And if you're balling, you can go to Experian, Equifax, or TransUnion and pay for the report. But, you know, if you've been following me for a little while, you know that's not how we do things around here. And I know some ways that you can get it for free. So if you want to get your Experian credit report, you can go to the MSE Credit Card Club. If you want to know your TransUnion, you can go to Credit Karma. And if you want to know your Equifax, you can go to ClearScore. Now, I only use Credit Karma and ClearScore because Experian has refused to acknowledge my existence. So unfortunately, I can't give you much advice with those. But one thing I've noticed between the 2 I use is that Credit Karma is so in-depth and it gives you a lot of information, whereas ClearScore is a bit better if you're already a bit savvy about these things, and they also give you tips on how to do things like get loans, get mortgages, and all that jazz. So the first time you actually look at your credit report, it can be really daunting because there's so much information. Like if you didn't know before, the government knows what you're doing and knows what you're spending your money on. So you better fix up. So I'm going to jump into one of the ones I use just so you can have an idea of what actually is inside your credit score. Okay. So as you can see here, my credit score is not completely amazing. And that's because I've actually just built it up over the past 2 years because I didn't live in the UK before that. But I've been growing it ever since I got on the electoral roll earlier this year. So when you go into your credit report for the first time, what you see is your address and any previous addresses you've lived at, whether you're on the electoral roll and the address that you're registered for that at, or your bank accounts, or your credit cards, loans and debt, any missed payments you've made, any defaults, repossessions, bankruptcies and IVAs for the past 6 years. Now, this can be a lot to get your head around, especially if it's the first time you're looking at your credit report. So, for now, just try and get to terms with it. And in the meantime, make sure you're paying all your bills on time. Don't go mad and blow all your money on parties and strippers. And, you'll be fine. Really and truly, the best thing about having a good credit score is that it allows you to get more credit. And this can be a godsend in times when you're struggling a bit and you just need a little bit to tide you over in the meantime. It also helps you get lower interest rates on credit that most people get. So for instance, if you want to get a mortgage or if you want to get a car loan, having a good credit score can actually allow you to have a lower interest rate than the general population. Now you know the effect that your credit score can have in your life. Surely it would be a good idea to keep an eye on it regularly, no? So at the minimum, I'd say check it at least once a year. But if you're a bit paranoid like me, I actually get my report from both of the ones that I use every month, just so I can have a look and make sure there's nothing a bit dodgy there. Actually, something I just remembered is that it's good to keep in mind that there can be a bit of a lag between something happening and it showing up on your credit report. So, if you open an account today, it might not show up for the next 1, 2, and even 3 months. So it's a good idea just to keep this in mind just for certain things. If there's something that you think should or shouldn't be there, you can always call your credit reporter and let them know and they'll work with you to take it off if need be. So in my case, it took me 8 months, 8 whole months, just to get my credit reporting bureaus to put my electoral roll address on my credit report. And actually that affected my ability to get credit and it stopped me from building up my credit score as fast as I wanted. I didn't know that I could call to make it go a bit faster, so I'm letting you know now so you don't make the same mistakes that I did. Okay, now we have all the background, let's jump right into what can negatively affect your credit score. Now, the most common thing to affect your credit score negatively is something called a hard search. Now, a hard search is when you've applied for credit and that person goes to the credit reporting bureaus to look at your credit report. For some reason, applying for credit reduces your credit score, so you really don't want to be doing those too often. I'd say a maximum of 3 a year. And it's probably a good idea to have a look at eligibility checkers just to make sure you fit the normal requirements and you can see whether you'd have a good chance of being accepted for the credit before you actually apply. Another common way to reduce your credit score is by having missed or late payments. Now, I've said in one of my previous videos that I find it a lot better and a lot easier to automate any of my bill payments. That way I don't forget and this thing doesn't happen to me. If you do miss a payment, it's important to pay it as quickly as you remember. And sometimes if you call the lender and tell them, oh, it was just a mistake, they might even remove it off your credit report for you. But if you miss too many payments, your account goes into default and they can send the debt collectors after you. Have you ever watched Can't Pay Will Take It Away? Yeah. And if you have more serious issues like CCJs, bankruptcies, these are going to tank your credit score. And I mean tank below freezing, -40. Okay, it doesn't go to -40, but it's going to really hurt your credit score. So you want to make sure that you're not doing those. But if by some chance you've already gotten yourself into this situation, don't worry, it'll drop off in 6 years. But in the meantime, you have to make sure you're doing all the right things to get it back up. And like I said in my previous video, payday loans and cash advances are really bad for your credit because it just shows that you need money urgently and it looks like it's a bit risky to lend to you. And finally, if you have a joint financial product with somebody that has bad credit, that can affect your credit. So if you're booing up with your Ben, you know, I'm buying a house with my man, I'm buying a car with my girl, and they have bad credit, that could be bad news for your credit too. So those are all the ways that you can affect your credit score negatively. And like I said, if your credit score is too low, you might have an issue getting any form of credit. Some people can't even get phone contracts because their credit is so low. So now we've looked at the negatives, let's look at the positives. So the first thing you should do to boost your credit score is to get on the electoral roll. And that basically means you've registered to vote at a particular address. Now the reason lenders like this is because it shows some stability, because you know you're at an address for a particular amount of time, but it also means that if you go into default, they know where to find you. So you can't run away. Next is utilization. Now, utilization is just a really big word that means how much of your available credit are you using. And most credit reporting bureaus in the UK say you should be using between 25 and 30% of all your available credit. So to do some quick maths for you, if you have £1,000 in available credit, you should be using a maximum of £300. Now some people say this should be all of your available credit. So if you have 2, 3 or 4 credit cards, it should be all of those. But I would say you should do it per lender. So even if you have one for 1,000 and one for 15,000, you should be making sure that you're only using the 300 and the 1,001 and the whatever and the 15. Okay, my quick maths failed me. The 4,500 and the 15,001, but sometimes obviously that might not be possible depending on what you're using your credit card for. So if you can't do that, at least make sure that of all your available credit, you're only using 30%. I don't know why this is the case, but you know, you gotta do what you gotta do. One of the quickest ways to improve your utilization is actually by getting more credit. Now, make sure you are disciplined. There's no point getting £30,000 worth of credit if you're going to be doing up Dubai, doing up Gucci, okay? That's not what it's for. Increase your available credit to something like 5,000 or 10,000, something that isn't too much, and only use that 30%. You have to be disciplined. If you get into £30,000 of debt, don't come and call me, please. Now, usually you can get more credit just by asking your current lender for an increase, and sometimes they'll do this automatically, you know, if you've shown that you're a diligent and mature and responsible spender. So the next best way to improve your credit score is by paying on time and in full. And even if you're not paying in full, at least make sure you're paying the minimums on time. That's going to tell lenders that you're responsible with your money and you know what to do with it. And obviously in this particular time, a lot of people are having troubles with their money, they're losing their jobs, they're having to find alternative sources of income. But if you find yourself struggling to pay back your lenders, make sure you call them and let them know about a change in your circumstances. Some might be able to offer you payment holidays, some might even be able to stop the interest to avoid your debt going up and up and up. Just make sure you're letting them know and don't just not pay. There are actually a few debt charities that you can call that might be able to negotiate something with your lenders. And finally, pay attention to the age of all the credits that you have. So having older accounts on your credit report just shows that you're stable and you don't just open and close accounts all willy-nilly. If you've never been able to get credit so far or you don't really have much history, don't fear. If you can, see if you can pay one of the bills in your house. This might be, you know, broadband, or it might be Sky. That at least shows that you have the ability to pay back something month by month, and it'll improve your credit score. Another alternative is to get a credit builder credit card, but these have astronomical interest rates. So you have to make sure that you're paying off the balance every single month in full. And so those are all my tips on how to positively and not negatively affect your credit score. So like I've said before, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just somebody that's really passionate about personal finance and helping other people reach their financial goals. So if that's something that you'd like to see, why not subscribe, comment and like the video, because it really helps me in the algorithm. So stay tuned for part 3 of the credit card series. And until next time, see ya.